Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, or just a hearty welcome from Germany. I hope everyone is safe and sound. You've grabbed a coffee and you've made yourself comfortable. My name is Heiner Müller, and I'm responsible for our packaging segment here at CGS. I know you're all busy, and so thank you very much for joining us. With me today, I have a very smiling Markus Brune, one of our product managers, who will help me out with the technical part, as we will have a closer look at how you can benefit immensely when using ORIS applications together with spectral data. Hello, Markus, and good to have you here this morning or today.
Thanks, Heiner. Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
As you can see, I have named today's webinar as Spectral, and I've done that for a good reason, because what you are going to see is truly spectacular. Some of you may have heard me talking about this back in June already during our last series of webinars. Back then, it was just an announcement of what we will have in the future. Now it has become a product, and I have to say our R&D department has done a very good job on it. As usual, we will have enough time to answer and discuss your questions after the presentation. And here's something new. I'm sure you all know the chat function, which you will find at the bar at the bottom of the screen. If you want to know something very quickly, put your questions in the chat, which someone of our technical team will monitor at all times and try to answer immediately. We will cover the most interesting ones also later on in our question and answer session. For the moment, let me ask a couple of questions first. I'm sure you will be asked quite a few of them by many other people, and we want to make sure during these presentations that you have the right answers. The first question, of course, is what exactly are spectral data and what is the difference to, say, an LIB definition? Probably the most important one is what are the benefits and why you as a customer should definitely use it. CXF is not yet commonly used throughout the industry. So what are the challenges, at least up to now? CGS was amongst the early adopters of CXF technology. So how is this technology being used in the CGS ORIS products? You may say you have worked with spot colors in FlexPack or Color Tuner before, and the results were normally very acceptable. So why is it such a game changer when it just improves spot colors? Or can it be used for something else? As you know by now, the key to using spectral data in the ORIS applications is the new CXF toolbox. How do you actually use it most efficiently in practice? And what do I mean when I talk about the use whatever you have approach? And finally, what is spectral prediction? After the last webinar, I heard comments from customers like, boy, that was heavy stuff, and I'm not quite sure I fully understand it. No, it is not complicated. And we want to make sure today you fully understand the huge benefits and how CXF can fit into your process. No matter whether you use it to communicate all of your spot colors or brand colors, or just to generate better and more accurate proofs. I can tell you, with this technology, you have the future of color management at hand. Most of you will know anyway, but what exactly is CXF? CXF stands for Color Exchange Format and is, hello fellow competitors, the only true open color data exchange format currently on the market. You may not think so, but CXF goes almost back 20 years. CXF was actually programmed based on XML language by former Greytag Macbeth, now X-Rite, to transport color information amongst their various products. Eventually, they submitted it to the ISO committee to replace former proprietary definitions, which had been using mostly ASCII text format. By 2005, it was accepted and it became an open industry standard. About the same time, the Ghent working group here in Europe started a discussion how spot color information could be better implemented in proofing systems using PDFX files. Finally, by 2009, the ICC committee recommended the CXF format for spectral color information. Consequently, the by then new PDFX ISO standard allows CXF spectral color information to be used within a PDFX file. And finally, by 2014, the ISO standards 17972-2 and afterwards -4 were approved, which define the current CFX4 standards. And we will see later on what the differences are. If you ask me what exactly is CXF, I would say it is the result of 10 years of research and development of industry leaders, brand owners, and the leading technical organizations worldwide. The same, by the way, goes for the PDFX format. We will also see later on that these formats are closely connected. And incidentally, CXF is, of course, also approved by the American CGS committee. Everywhere in the world, we see more and more global brands, and they typically have very demanding CI requirements. These cannot be fulfilled anymore with traditional color management or an old-fashioned approach. The packaging industry, no matter whether they print conventional or digital, will go in the same direction as commercial printing has already done several years ago. We will see a standardization of all aspects along the entire production chain. This, of course, includes an error-free communication of brand colors. One standard is the ISO 17972-4, which describes, again, the CXF X4 format. In its current form, it leaves nothing to be desired. Many people are not aware that it already is the common language to communicate color amongst the entire supply chain. Like PDF is the format of choice when it comes to a document format. The fantastic thing about it is that it securely connects throughout the entire creation process, from the brand owner who might host his colors in a cloud application, making it available to all parties involved, to the design agency making use of these exactly defined colors using, for instance, Adobe ASE placeholders in Illustrator, standing for Adobe Swatch Exchange. And of course, into the ink lab or to the ink supplier. Every ink formulation software today understands CXF and is able to create mixing recipes within very tight tolerances. And at the end, CXF information arrives at the final station, the press room, together with all relevant information where it can be used in intelligent press side color controls like X-Rite's IntelliTracks, making sure that what is being printed correlates exactly what the brand owner or designer had in mind. CXF information can also be verified in great detail and be used for constant quality control. You will actually definitely see more and more brand owners adopting the CXF standard and force their suppliers to also use it. And I think the current situation with COVID will most likely accelerate the process as people are looking for anything which streamlines and automates processes, making them more secure. So once again, let's look at the advantages of CXF when it comes to brand color communication. We can easily create, edit, and communicate all aspects of brand colors easily throughout the entire supply chain. What exactly these aspects are, we will see later on when Marcus takes us through the application. One key benefit is its standards-based and non-proprietary nature, something I cannot stress enough, particularly when we are talking about other proprietary color models. You need to understand the benefits of an open industry standards. Yes, others are also supporting CXF, but only to get color information into highly proprietary systems, which from my point of view should actually be named closed colors, pun explicitly intended. We will see later on that the same can be achieved without getting out of the standard. CXF in itself is a very powerful container which can transport a lot more than color information. To take it one step further, the ideal partner of CXF X4 is the PDFX format with its new PDF 2.0 definition, which is, by the way, downward compatible with any PDFX 1 point something file. The PDF file itself is yet another container which transports not only CXF spot color information, but a lot more, like output intents, mixing hints, density, and printing sequence information. So all information needed to print a design in an intended way can be transported in one single file. This, of course, reduces makeup times in the press room and lets you finally create proofs with correct tints and overprints. With the CXF Toolbox, the CXF Color Cloud, and the other CGS ORIS applications, CGS provides the infrastructure to make the most out of spectral data. This could be quality parameters for certification, color validation, and a cloud service to host and distribute brand colors easily accessible at any time from anywhere in the world. As we have seen, the technology is not new and a lot of well-known brands have already adopted it. Quite a few are also using the CGS product intensively, like for instance, one of the major liquor distilling companies. Whether prepress house, converter, designer, or brand owner, there's no reason not to become familiar with this technology. Are we the only ones? Of course not. Many leading companies in our industry do support and promote CXF. And of course, there are those who do not want to for obvious reasons, but I think the market will settle that sooner or later. So to lead over to Marcus's part, let's get a little bit more technical. I'm sure most of you have already seen a CXF X4 tint ramp by now, but still I want to recall what exactly it is so we know how CXF information is generated. This will be important to understand the new functionality of the CXF toolbox later on. As mentioned, the ISO 17972 describes the CXF X4 format with its total of ideally 11 patches ranging from solid to substrate coloration, and the same number printed over black to define the opacity of the color as well. What we also immediately see is that even if it only has 3 patches, in other words, typically solid, substrate, and mostly your 50% in between, it is still a CXF X4 per definition. This is already a lot easier to accommodate on a press sheet than a full tint ramp. Furthermore, what we also see is that there are 2 subsets, 4A and 4B. 4A does not require the patches over black, as you can see here, and 4B does not require anything at all except for the solid color information. In other words, the bandwidth is from 1 single patch to 22 patches, but it is still spectral information with the reflective properties of a color rather than just an LED value. And this is exactly what is behind the new CGS technology, as we will see this in a minute. We can turn almost anything into CXF data and enjoy the benefits without having to radically change existing workflows or processes. And for the missing pieces, we have found ways to add these or predict their behavior. It is in fact easy to generate complete CXF4 information. You just print your tint ramps on your designated substrate, measure it with your normal measuring device. If you want, you can take several measurements and take an average, and you have created your CXF spectral information. All of this can be done directly out of the CXF toolbox with a connected spectrophotometer. Sounds easy? Yes, it is. So why not go for it today? Well, as always, there are some stones in the passageway. As we know by now, CXF solves almost all problems in communicating brand colors along the supply chain, including generating highly accurate proof prints. But there are 2 variables which have obviously a tremendous influence on the final result. For one, it's the substrate and its coloration. This may not be a big thing in commercial printing, but it is very much so when you think about all the different substrates being used in packaging. As an example, if you look at a proprietary color system like Pantone Live, it actually knows 30 different substrate categories. And the second variable, of course, is the press behavior, namely the dot gain curve. So when you do the math and calculate the number of combinations, you will see that something like 5 brand colors will quickly become 500. And for each combination, a tint ramp would need to be printed to be accurate. Also, unfortunately, a company like Pantone does still not provide full CXF information. So at the end of the day, it boils down to the question, who prints all these tint ramps, and even more so, who bears the cost? And then CXF is only about spot colors, which obviously is only one side of the coin. The others are the process colors. The world could be such an ideal place, but let's face it, that is not what most of our customers are facing today. Sometimes I think the things are likely to get even worse in the future, because you will find more and more career changers, especially with brand clients, and they do not have a sound basic knowledge as in the past. It will be a slow process to educate the industry. And all of us, as we are here, we are mostly not in a position to evangelize multinational brands like, for instance, Procter & Gamble or Nestle. So, should we just lean back and wait until the last one has adopted spectral color technology? Or maybe until this very important employee here in the ink kitchen has retrained and become a bar mixer making margaritas instead of spot color ink? So before I finally hand over to Marcus, let us look at the CGS approach. We know there is nothing like an ideal world out of there. Nevertheless, we are the color management company that has probably the most extensive knowledge of CXF technology in the world and implemented it very early on. I also think we have clearly recognized its potential. Our applications give the user maximum freedom in the way he wants to work, something very pragmatic, which I would like to call the use whatever is available approach. When you cannot print tint ramps like you normally would, extract spectral information from an ICC profile, a text file, or a step wedge on a press sheet. Let the software fill missing pieces for you by predicting press behavior based on previous information. We have also taken the spectral concept one step further, and we use it also for process colors. I'm personally always fascinated about the stunning accurately results you can achieve by applying only very limited spectral information taken off a few patches on a press sheet. The application is completely open, and you can build your own database with not being at mercy of a software vendor. And finally, we have turned the CXF cloud into an infrastructure to share not only spectral color information, but so much more. So I would like now Marcus to take over and show us the application itself and how it all works. Marcus has prepared some files for us with a lot of spectral information, right?
Yes, Heiner, thanks a lot for the introduction, for the overview. And now let me share my screen.
All right, let me start.
Heiner.
You
okay,
have the
thanks.
Take over. Thank
yes,
you.
I will. Okay, so welcome again from my side. Thanks for being here. And yeah, today we are going to show you our spectral overprint CXF toolbox stuff we have prepared here. And yeah, so let's start with a common test form. I think the most of you know already. It's our multicolor test form, CMYK multicolor, and this test form has CXF data embedded. But as you see it here in the Acrobat, you cannot see directly if CXF is embedded or stuff like that. So it's hard to see. So to see if their CXF is embedded, I can drag and drop this test form here to my toolbox. And what you see here, this document is the optimum what we expecting, or what would be nice to have a good overprint simulation. So you see here we have spectral CXF data embedded for the process, and of course for the spot colors. This would be nice. And in addition to that, also good information is always to have the print order. So if you have those informations, you can expect a pretty good and very good overprint simulation in FlexPack or in Color Tuner. If you, for example, the options, what I'm going to show you here. For example, the CXF data to use out of the PDF, and of course apply the spectral merge mode. So these two options has to be flagged, and then you have the new overprint simulation mode. This would be yes, Heiner?
Sorry, Marcus. I just want to touch on something here. So obviously this is the optimum situation, which hopefully we will see more and more in the future, i.e. getting a PDF, let's call it pimped with CXF information already. One thing which I just noticed here, you have all the process information, of course, in there with full tint ramps in this case. So all the dot gains and everything, or the press behavior is really, part of the whole thing, apart from the spot colors.
Yes.
What you are saying is, if I would take that PDF file into an application like Color Tuner or FlexPack, I could already generate a perfect proof without really having to create a profile or a dat table, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, this is possible, and we recommend this. But we have also customers, they like to prefer to use for the CMYK colors. They just want to use, for example, the dat table still. So it's also possible. You can use the dat table and the CXF informations for the spot colors out of the PDF. And then you would use the overprint simulation here, but you can also use process colors as spectral data without using a dat table.
And this is what I was just mentioning earlier on. If you take this this file, which has probably like what, 8 color separations with CXF information times 22 patches. So we're talking roughly about what, I don't know, 80, 100 patches. So that is already enough when it's spectral information to create a perfect proof as compared, let's say, to an IT8 or ECI chart with 1900, 2000 patches.
Yes, you can use it, yes. And the one thing you have to keep in mind here, if you want to use spectral data, CXF data, often, or it's recommended to use, for example, this kind of tint ramp. This is a full tint ramp for CXF data, what you showed us the spot color printed on substrate in 10% steps, and also the same color printed on black for the opacity. So this would be also the optimum to get spectral CXF information, but it's not always the case. And sometimes you just have, for example, a printed test chart, like what we have here. You can have a 4color test chart, but you can also have a multicolor test chart, what you see here. It's 4color plus 3 additional spot colors. And of course, in the toolbox, it's possible to use such a measurement of an ICC profile, what we have here, and you just drop it to the toolbox, and the toolbox will extract the spectral informations out of the ICC profile and will give you the full CXF tint ramp out of the measurement of a test chart. But you have to keep in mind that not every ICC profile or every vendor or every profiling tool is embedding spectral data into ICC profiles. You have to be careful here, but we support it and other bigger vendors as well. And if you have those measurements, you can extract these full CXF informations out of the test chart, for example, and out of an ICC profile.
So Mr. Schroff, I could also, as you mentioned, I can also measure a test chart, for instance, use the resulting text file and also drop this into the toolbox, right?
This should be possible as well, yes.
Okay, so there are various ways to create CXF information until such time that we're really getting, full CXF information with each and every file, which of course is not the case today.
Right. important, Heiner, important is just to have spectral data in the text measurement or in the ICC profile.
Yeah, fully understood. What I also see, Marcus, is we have a lot of blank fields there, blank areas below the diagram there. Can you just tell us a little bit more about these?
Sure. So these are the meta informations you can attach to the color. So every color has its own ID and its own informations, and you can attach to every color the name, of course, the substrate name, the print process, and for example, also if it's important for you to certify the color later on in the printing process, proofing process, you can attach here some delta E values, what you want to certify. You get informations about the measurement itself, which measurement mode, which measurement device, opacity values, all the stuff will be put to every single color in the CXF format.
So this is all in that container, and then again, that container could, of course, be put into a PDFX file.
Yes, yes, PDFX, and so you can transport all the important spot color informations via CXF, and so via a PDFX file.
So again, this is still close to the maximum or to the optimum we will see, but let's face it. And when we come back, and I like this very much, when somebody comes with this grimy old 10-year-old Pantone swatch book there, that happens very often. The customer comes just with a single solid color and says, match this. So is there a way to generate then, or to add the missing pieces?
Yeah, this is often the situation we are facing in printing houses. So we have here a printed picture from a press, offset press or a flex or whatever, and you just have, of course, the paper white, and you just have here, as here you can see here, the full tones, and this is all you have. But if you want to do a proper overprint simulation, it's not enough to have just full tones. You need much more informations, and here the toolbox comes in and needs or can help you to optimize or predict the colors they are missing, or the grid points they are missing.
I think the very least information, of course, what we need to know is, of course, the substrate coloration or substrate properties, right?
Yes, this is one thing. For example, you could start with the toolbox. If you just have these limited informations like paper white and just full tones, you can go to the toolbox and measure in those informations. So I was already measuring in. Just a second. I'm logging in. I was measuring in the full tones, and I also was measuring in the paper white or the substrate. And what you see here is, I'm just loading the solids. So the solids, I was just measuring in here, what you see here with the toolbox. And yeah.
That is the information in that file, right?
Right, in that file. And in addition to that, we have, of course, the paper white. The paper white, as you can see on the right-hand side, has not been added right now. This is because you can, for example, create your own substrate database. So you can measure in a substrate via the toolbox as well with the measurement functionality, and then you are able to assign a paper type or a substrate to your full tone here, full tone measurement. I can show you that one here. I can edit all the spot colors at once here with this functionality. And if I go to the assign functionality, I can go to my spot or to my substrate database. I have here prepared two different substrates. I have here cardboard, for example, and a coated paper. So now I can choose this coated paper one and will assign this one to my existing full tone measurement. And if I'm going back now here, you can see I have added now the substrate to my full tone.
Let me go one step back. So in other words, the classic situation is really a customer comes, with this printed sheets, with the solids on, and you are measuring that very substrate, whatever it is. So what you're also saying is you can not only measure in that substrate, on that printed sheet, but you can also change the substrate, right? So you can put it into a database if you want to. Eventually, you will end up with a lot of substrate colorations, which you have just measured with your spectral. So you can exchange, you can also change the substrate, right? Marcus? I think we have lost Marcus for a moment. Marcus? Oops, we have lost Marcus there. So I will try to bridge the time a little bit till Marcus is back. What I was referring to is what the software can do when you have the substrate property, when you measure your full tone and you have substrate properties, what the software can do is the software can actually subtract an existing substrate and add a new one. And this is, of course, a very, very valuable functionality, which allows you to measure solids in and then again change the substrate property. And I hope once Marcus is back, what we can also show you is that this is a brand new functionality you will find in the FlexPack and color tuner applications. So we have added a functionality there, which allows you to change the substrate coloration in an existing DAT file or in an existing DAT profile. So in other words, you know, what's very common when you're printing, for instance, corrugated with kraft liners or so, and you have visual differences between one batch and the other batch, you take your DAT table and then measure in the new substrate and change your DAT file just by adding that new substrate coloration. So of course the beauty about that one is it saves you from reprinting a chart on your press and measure that. So you can just do this, you know, within minutes at a touch of a button. I have a slight problem because Marcus cannot show me the toolbox right now.
Hello. I'm back again. Sorry, Heiner, my internet was completely out, and I was offline. Unbelievable. This happens in Germany. Sorry for that.
Yeah, it's 2G anyway.
Sorry for that. I don't know what happened. So
no problem, Marcus. If you can show the, I was just referring to changing substrates.
Yes, Heiner. I hope you were able to describe a little bit and entertain the guys in the meantime.
I was telling a not too good German joke anyway. What I was also referring to is that you can change substrate colorations in existing DAT profiles, and maybe you can show that for a second.
Yes. So it's also possible, yeah, in the color tuner FlexPack and X-Gamut press matcher. So you can easily change here an existing paper white of a DAT table to a new paper white. If the stock was changing or if a complete different stock, you can type in LAB values, or you can start a measurement with your I1, for example, and then you can calculate a complete new paper white to the existing profile.
Once again, I think that's very important because that saves a lot of time and also saves a lot of press time actually by not having to print ECR charts for each and every substrate combination.
Right. Yeah. So this is a big advantage. You don't have to print any big test charts, measure those test charts in, and do an iterative color match or whatever. It's just a very fast and easy way to attach a new paper white to the complete profile. It's done in a few minutes, just in 1 or 2 minutes.
So if you go back to the toolbox for a moment.
Yes.
So we now actually have our solids there, and we have the other lonely comrade there, which is the substrate coloration. And by the way, what is this little triangle? There's a little red triangle there on this patch.
Yes, it just indicates that the toolbox or the user was changing. For example, the substrate, or later on the prediction that was edited by the user, for example, or predicted or calculated.
Okay, so anything which is measured will not show it. Anything which is predicted or calculated has this little flag just to show that there have been some changes to the whole thing.
Yes.
Now, if I look to the, at these two patches again, that of course leaves a lot in between, which of course is, as I was referring to earlier on, that is really the dot gain, what's happening in between these two patches. And this is typically what we're not having because people do not have the full tint ramp.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Now what you're saying is using prediction, we can actually predict what's in between or what's happening in between this 100 and 0% patch,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. So before I come to the prediction, Heiner, I just, maybe you talked about this while I was away, but just one information regarding the substrate. If a substrate has been added, I can also remove a substrate from an existing one, and I can replace an paper white. So this was something I just want to show the audience. If, for example, the spot color was printed on a coated paper, or you want to attach the coated paper to the measurement, just select the new paper white here, substrate, and you can edit very easily this new paper white to the existing spot colors. And now, of course, we can go over to the predictions. For the prediction, we have two recommendations or two ways, and one section Heiner already mentioned in his presentation is that we are really open and you can create your own prediction database with your own color sets and the own environment of your customer, the printing machine. It can be a flexo or whatever. This is one thing you can do, and of course you can also use our data sets we have already embedded to our database. But to get those databases, it's like weather prediction. You know, the weather has to be predicted, and it's always very good. And how do the guys do it? Of course, they're collecting data. They have data, they're analyzing, and they're collecting, and then they can predict the weather for the next days. Often it's good, the prediction, and the same. We do a prediction based on some color data, and what we are doing to have a good prediction, we are printing, or it's recommended to print out these 25 selected colors. These are colors, process colors at the beginning, and of course you see a lot of other colors. They are representing the color space: orange colors, green colors, blue colors, red colors, and we're trying to represent the color space and use these representative colors for prediction.
Just to go a little bit more into the detail with that one is, and by the way, of course, when you talk about the weather forecast, I'm absolutely sure that those guys in Florida will like to hear that during the next hurricane season. But anyways, so we have these 25 colors or generic colors. So what you're saying is it sort of equally divides the color space in certain colors, and you have full tint ramps, in other words, ideally full 22 patches of these reference colors printed, right?
Yes.
So,
right.
If we're talking about a pre-press company, flexo pre-press company, typically they would probably buy half a shift of press time on 8-color machine. Plates are for free anyway, and sends the whole thing 3 times to the press, and you have covered for a certain print condition. You have covered everything with these 25 colors, right?
Right. So this is the message behind. We have to think about to use these kind of colors to represent these or to have a good base for prediction.
So when you show the main screen of the toolbox once again, so in other words, what you're saying is we have the spectral properties of these 25 reference colors.
Yes.
So that,
So what I can show now is if we have this database, this prediction set in the database, or the customer was printing that, you can predict your colors via this option here. So this is now the brand new prediction tool what we are using, and I'm predicting now the grid points in between, and now you can see also the grid or the triangles here, that these has been added by the software, and we are using now the predictive reference for calculating missing grid points here. And you see here, for example, this prediction library color number 22 comes as a deviation of 13%, but we also can use more references around this color to have a better prediction.
So I see this slider there on the very right side. So in other words, what we're saying is, even if I yes, I do have this 25 colors, but I do not have the full patches. I can also use that, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Which is very often the critical thing, that people don't want to spend the money to to actually really print all these colors just for a test. So you can really use whatever you have, even some step wedges on the press sheet.
Yes.
So when I add a new color, so now let's assume we have this 25 reference colors. When I add a new one, see, the software will look which of these 25 colors is the closest, right? And
yes.
then take the spectral properties.
Yes, right. Yeah, yeah. And if you did the prediction, the calculation, you can see it here now. The missing points now are in, and now I have a complete and full CXF tint ramp. I have the printed color over white, over the substrate, and even over black for the opacity, what is very important for the CXF overprint simulation.
I just saw a question which I found quite interesting. I just saw a question coming in. Does that, does FlexPack have that functionality built in? Yes, of course. FlexPack can use all this information derived from the toolbox. So it's a combination between the toolbox and applications like Color Tuner or FlexPack.
Yes.
What we said early on, of course, you can pimp or you can include all this information into a PDF file, into a PDF container using the toolbox. But you can also work the conventional way, that you put all this spectral information into your normal spot color database in applications like Color Tuner and FlexPack, right?
Right. Yeah. So yes, what you said is we have now the two possibilities. The one was like the possibility we saw in the beginning. We just dropped the PDF to the toolbox with the spot colors. And this and the toolbox will automatically, if I have attached these libraries, automatically the spectral data to the PDF. And so then you could use this PDF as a full container, and you can get a very good overprint simulation here. And the other possibility is you just go to the application like Color Tuner, FlexPack, or whatever we have, and you go to the SCGX, to the spot color database, and you can now embed the spectral data, the CXF data. Now I'm connecting here to our cloud. I was uploading these spectral data to the cloud, and now I can also load my prediction colors here. I see here, select them, and just import them to my SCGX. And now I can see here that I have added my spectral informations. You can see it in the info area that we are using here spectral data, not only the spot colors, also the process colors. And now I can use the same technology here with my Color Tuner, with my FlexPack.
So I can use I don't really have to have the cloud connection, right? Of course, it's a useful.
No, of course, yeah. You can store everything locally on your PC, in your network. You don't have to use the cloud. But I like to work with the cloud. I'm sure I have only one data set there, and everybody who's working with these colors uses the same data set. But it's up to the customer what he wants to use.
This is, of course, very important when you work with or when you work across different sites. You have one central location where you can store all that information. And yeah, when we look at the screen, what you also see right next to the CXF cloud is also, for instance, Pantone Live. So some of you people might be aware that we have an extensive project, for instance, with Sun Chemical for metal decoration printing, where we host not only color information, but whole spot color files, CGSX information which can then also be accessed via a cloud application.
Yes. So this is also again the possibility to store all the important spot color informations in the cloud. It doesn't matter if it's CXF or if it's SCGX. We can also store these kind of information in the cloud. And just information for the audience here. The window you see here right now is the new window for our spot colors. We just rearranged a little bit, so this is why maybe it looks a little bit different to you.
Of course, by the way, Marcus, if we look at the main screen, this, of course, some of you might not have seen yet, because that's the new look and feel of the version 4. And I'm not sure whether everybody updated to that new version. I think there's a lot of new functionality in there, which makes it certainly worthwhile to update, especially also when you look at the ability to change substrates, for instance, in your existing DAT tables.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we've also added quite a few other functions, like a new preview function, which is a true PDF viewer, for instance.
Yes. And if we are now talking about the new interface, I just will show the audience one important changing we did right now in the new version. The current version outside has not this functionality right now, but it will be in the next version. Regarding CXF data, you see now here the document from the beginning, and the info area you see here, for example, you get informations about the spot colors and where the spot colors came from. So for example, in this PDF, the info area tells you here are CXF data embedded we are using. And for example, if you use this PDF from the beginning, this PDF is using now the CXF data out of the SCGX table. So you have much more control instances that tells you are using CXF here and there. Before it was not possible, and now it's easier to see for the user what he is using.
Marcus, one thing I would like to touch on a bit more is we've seen now all this again, all these spot colors. What I mentioned earlier on is that, of course, we're using CXF, or can use CXF also for process colors. And maybe, I don't know whether you have that available. You know, we had this one file with one document, for instance.
Yes, I know.
Where we had a very specific task to solve. This was, for instance, just a four-color job printed with a couple of images and the tricky part about the whole thing was around these images you had your spot color patches in different colors, which were all printed out of the process colors. And we had the task to actually match existing printed sheets, which was printed on Kraftliner from 2 different companies. And the profiles, the fingerprints, the press fingerprints provided did not really match the output. So we tried to create a DAT table to match these existing press sheets, and we found significant differences. Now, the problem when you work the conventional way is, and you were trying to tweak the colors based on the images, your so-called spot color patches would become askew. So finally, what we did was we were just using the information from this Tint Ramps here on the press sheets, and we were converting this Tint Ramps into CXF information and mapped the process colors onto the CXF information. And when we printed that without any DAT table, just based on this little information, this little color information, the proofs which came out were absolutely dead on. And there was no way conventionally that we would have matched that press sheet. So in other words, it's very interesting, you know, how accurate a proof can be based on really this very, very little color information. So Marcus, I think we've covered most of it. I would very much like to now go answer your questions, and I'm sure there will be quite a few. Before we do that, I have one more slide with you to share, which I would probably like to do now. Let me just go to that one. Just a little bit about the Toolbox application. Sorry, let me just go to the right screen here. So, and what we have decided to do is to turn the Toolbox into an app which is available on an annual subscription basis. So in other words, this annual charge includes any kind of updates, whatever. The software will automatically update when it connects to the internet. What we have also decided is, this will, by the way, this will be as of January next year. And what we've also decided is to make the prediction tool not an option, but include it into the Toolbox. What we would like to do is we have an introductory price until the end of the year. And if you're interested, please contact your local CGS partner, and we're more than happy to share the special prices with you. So in terms of presentation, this is everything from our side. By now, I would very much like to open the microphones and give you the opportunity to ask your questions. Please go ahead.